This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl, who's presently in a rehearsal with Timo Ellis for our short 5 show Big Sexy Noise cover band coming in July. In the meantime, we're reposting, because we think it's important, the David Yow interview of Jesus Lizard, as they have a new single out called Hide and Seek, and a new album coming out called Rack. And loving as we do, not only Mr. Yow himself, which I have to say, one time when Kathy Unsworth, who's written a lot of their liner notes, we ran into him at a festival in the UK, telling him how good he looked, and he claimed that he looked like Willie Nelson's scrotum. Well, that's his sense of humor. I am very happy to have new music from Jesus Lizard, one of our favorite bands here at the Lydian Spin, and I think for all of you Lydiates as well. With that, no further ado, this is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch. Tim Dahl will be all over the place in a matter of minutes. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch. Tim Dahl and David Yow, most notorious for Scratch Acid, Jesus Lizard, and other acts of grand atrocity. Thank you for being here, honey buddy.
Thanks for having me.
I didn't know you were a whistler.
I like to have a little afternoon whistle, you know.
You call it that, but I'm sure there's more to it than that.
It blows! Oh my God.
That's why I told you. Oh, I think he's going to the bathroom. I think he's wet his
That
pants.
was it. That was the fastest interview yet.
Oh, suddenly,
This is a Lydian Spin.
those glasses above.
That's
Suddenly,
This is the Lydian Spin.
well, the whistle was actually the call to the
Whiskey.
It was that wild turkey. What is it?
that was a wild.
That wasn't a gobble. It was a
That
whistle.
was a wild turkey call to the Buffalo Trace. My friend, ask and you shall receive. If not, just take. That's always been my theory. Now, here we
Ice
are.
Cube.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's my
likes
very,
it.
very favorite bourbon,
What?
Buffalo Trace.
I brought it for you. Well, I stole it from a club last night.
She gave it to you in San Diego and said, "Remember, I forgot her name already." Oh, God.
Adele.
Yeah, she said, just tell her that Adele gave it to her.
Bartender in San Diego at our show the other night. Maybe she smelled that you were coming.
That makes sense. My mother and my sister both had the middle name Adele.
Here we go again.
connected
Now.
tissue.
Well, you're drinking from the fount of the San Diego Inn, Adele. So enjoy, my friend.
I have a chocolate chip bourbon bread pudding recipe that you have to use Buffalo Trace for. Because smell it, it's like bananas. Doesn't it smell like bananas?
It's chocolate chip. Are there bananas in your bread as well?
David, you have so many talents. I didn't know that baking was one of them.
That's the only thing I bake.
What? I wrote
That's
a
the only thing I
cookbook.
bake.
Tell me
Wait
about
a minute,
it.
wait a
It's a
minute,
chocolate chip bourbon?
Wait, say it again.
It's a chocolate chip bourbon bread pudding.
With Buffalo Trace.
But yeah, you can use any bourbon you want,
But
but
you
Buffalo
don't.
Trace
That's
is
the
the
one.
one to do it.
Now, why do you only have one thing you bake?
Baking, I prefer grilling or doing stuff.
Tim
on top
Dahl
of the
is a
stove.
master griller. Here we go. You know, I wrote a cookbook called The Need to Feed,
Did you really?
and I think you should investigate it. We'll talk about that later. I
What
didn't
do you
know.
like to grill?
Last night I grilled
Last night, he is a master griller.
chicken and zucchini.
A whole chicken or a cut?
No, cut into pieces and stuck on skewers. And I
Marinated?
ordered new skewers today because my skewers suck.
You know what? I collect
happened to
stainless steel chopsticks, but they're not for cooking. They're for actually tying people's nipples. Did I say that? Yes. You told me I had lovely nipples.
Dun, 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 dun.
Everybody knows that, David. Tell me something I don't know, mainly about yourself. Besides painting, grilling, baking bread with Buffalo Trace, what the hell are you doing, my friend, these days?
Well, I do photo retouching for a living, and I work too many hours a week generally. Yesterday, though, I told him I had to leave early at 1 o'clock so that I could go over to the Skirball Museum to see a Stanley Kubrick photography exhibit.
Was
Oh,
it
I heard about it,
fabulous?
It's coming down on Sunday, tomorrow.
Okay, because it's already been in New York.
I think maybe so.
I think so. I've been seeing advertising. I think
It's called
it doesn't
Through a
matter,
Different Lens.
What was
great.
your
It's
favorite?
great.
What was your favorite image in that?
There are a few, but there's
Welcome
one.
to David Yow.
There's one of a fella with round sunglasses looking at some sort of light fixture. It looks like Dr. Strangelove, or the photography is amazing, and it shows it really forecasts what an amazing guy he is for composition and,
So as a photo retoucher, I mean, do you do photography as well, or you just work on other people's photos?
I mostly work on other people's photos. It's
How
all
did you
key
even
art.
get into that?
When Photoshop first came out, I read an article that you could edit somebody out of a picture. I was going, no fucking way. And so I started fucking around with it and stuff. And then I was doing some stuff, or I was at this guy's place, a company in Chicago called Run and Gun. And he had a scanner. And I said, oh, you've got a scanner. Can I get a scan of something? He said, yeah, sure. What do you want? And I said, I don't care. A photograph. And he gave me this picture of him when he used to be a park ranger. And it's 2 rows of 6 guys. There's 12 guys standing there with their arms crossed.
Arms crossed in uniforms.
And I wanted to get rid of all the other guys and just leave him standing there.
So that was your first experiment.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about resolution. It fit on a floppy disk. And I left the
We're
floppy...
talking, when was this? Early 90s?
92?
Okay.
91, 92. A couple of weeks later, he called and he said, hey, I saw that thing you did. You want a job?
Yes!
And so then that's how it started.
So have you been doing it since then?
Not for a living. I started doing it for a living in 99 after the Jew Lord broke up.
Let's go back to the beginning now. Was that Austin, Texas?
You were born in Vegas, though, right?
I was born in Vegas, but I lived there for less than 2 years.
You kind of have a little bit of the stink of Vegas on you somewhere.
That's a Buffalo Trace.
Call it what you will, honey. So you went to Austin? As a young man, were you in Austin? Is that where all this started?
Well, my father was an Air Force pilot, and so I was born in Vegas, then we moved to North Africa.
Do you remember any of that?
I don't remember Vegas. I remember North Africa.
Morocco?
Libya
How long
Tripoli.
were you in Libya for?
for 4 years,
So from the age of what?
2 to 6.
And you know what? Memories at that point can impregnate us forever. What do you remember?
We got
of
our
it?
first pussycat, Meow. My father hated cats, and
Why?
He was a Tex boy. He's a dog.
Well,
he's
yeah,
a
dog lover. I love cats.
And my sister and I brought home this kitten and begged to have it, and he said, well, all right, we can have the cat, but we got to name it Meow, and a cat in the world can say her own name.
So, okay, so you got a cat with your dad. You're living in Libya. And did the cat survive your exit of Libya?
Yes, actually, we moved from Libya to Durham, North Carolina, and she didn't show up on the plane, and I guess somebody had let her out of her box, and like 3 days later, she showed up at our house 30 miles away.
She walked there.
Yeah.
Because cats can be that smart.
Yeah, it's like Milo and
What,
Otis.
any memories besides the pussycat of Libya?
I remember we lived on base, then we lived off base. And when we lived off base, the Mediterranean was our backyard.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It was great. I remember being on a little raft and having my dad toting my sister and me around and seeing octopus and skates.
incredible.
And stuff
I
like
love
that.
octopus.
And so, how turbulent? What was the? Because I don't know
What year
that is.
was
Yeah,
that?
how
Yeah.
turbulent was Libya at the time? Was it?
It wasn't. We
It
were
wasn't.
allies
It's
then.
before the whole
yeah.
80s Gaddafi.
Gaddafi,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, that was 1912 to 1916.
1912 to 1960.
I'm totally fucking with you, man.
I know. I'm just like,
Guys, be cool. Yeah, that was 62 to 66.
I'm looking at now something that must have been inspired by that Libyan age.
Yeah.
Copycat and a Litter of Other Cats by David Yow. What the hell is this, David?
It's a pun book.
An irresistible and hilarious book of cat cartoon portraits for all cat lovers, old, young, and in between.
If I had a copy of it, I would have brought you one, but I don't have a copy.
Well,
of
that's okay. I'm looking at the cover, and it's kind of cute and creepy, just like you. Cute and creepy. I have to just butt in and get this off my chest. You are one of, and this is the highest compliment I can give, I have to say, David Yow, Jesus Lizard. This is one of the creepiest musical experiences I've ever had. I like to describe it as, and really, because I'm a fucking creep, the gum under the table you don't want to touch. Now, somebody who's as creepy as I might think of that as a compliment, and I hope you take it as such.
I'd like to think it were the gum under the table that you would like to touch.
Maybe your gum under the table that I'd shoot spat out, and I hope you touch again with your tongue.
Yeah,
All right, then.
like Elf.
Let's go back to Texas. When did you know you had to start doing music?
I think when I first saw the punk rock at Raoul's on Halloween of '79, I saw the Huns at Raoul's in Austin, and it completely changed.
I don't know who the Huns were. What were the Huns?
They were just a terrific punk band from Austin at the time.
So,
And
like, I got to do that.
it's sort of, kind of, yeah.
What year was that?
79.
79.
So, Scratch Acid, was that the first outing musically for you?
No, I played bass in a throwaway punk band before that.
Did that matter, though?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
You got your dick wet.
Yeah.
Tell me about Scratch Acid. How'd that come to be? So you played bass in a throwaway punk band inspired by the Huns that nobody's ever heard of, I don't think. But if they did, whatever. And here we go. Now what? How does Scratch Acid? What? How?
I don't remember how we started.
But you started.
Yeah.
How long did that go for? You remember? I don't.
I think we started in 82 and broke up in 87.
Did you do a lot of touring at that point?
We did a lot of U.S. touring. We went to Europe once, and the West Coast only once.
Who was putting your stuff out then?
Rabid Cat Records did our...
Again, the cat connection.
Yeah. They did our first EP and our first album, and then the last record we did was on Touch and Go.
Was that successful? I mean, according to our standards as, under the radar rock.
I always figured
alternatives.
at that point that if you sell over 1,000 records,
course.
it's a success. And,
Definitely.
I mean, if people you don't even know are buying it, then you're doing pretty good.
And so then you're now establishing a relationship with Touch and Go, which is going to lead you to probably your next big step in your next big band.
What ended Scratch Acid?
Ray Washam, our drummer, who's one of the best drummers alive in the world, or if he was dead, he'd still be
The best drummer in the other world.
He's just an amazing drummer, and he's quite the perfectionist. And our guitar player, Brett, who's exceptionally wonderful, is not a perfectionist. And so they often would clash.
Are you a perfectionist? I'm not.
Nah, well,
I
not
work with
not
them,
that
but
kind of stuff.
anyway.
Not with the singing. I mean,
Come on.
And so,
that was the
it was,
breakup?
interpersonal band, what they say.
Diplomatic.
No bullshit.
yeah.
Basic bullshit. So they break up, and then what? You're not done. You're just beginning. Like, hey, come on.
Well, actually, I kind of was done. I didn't have much desire to do it again. And then this fella named Dwayne Dennison, who's a really good guitar player who was living there in Austin, had some free studio time or something, and he wrote a few tunes, and he asked me if I would play bass on them. And I said, well, sure, but I'm not a very good bass player. We should get David Sims to do it. And he said, oh, you think he'd do it? And I said, sure he would. So we got together like 8 or 9 songs with a drum machine and just recorded them as a project. And that was that. And then David and I moved to Chicago.
Why'd you go there?
Austin had become such a little Peyton place, and it was just, everybody had fucked everybody else.
It's always
and
good to move, but why Chicago? Why'd you go to Chicago and not New York?
Touch and Go and knowing people there? Was that it?
And David had joined this band with Steve Albini and Ray.
Which one?
Washam. I don't like to
That
even say the
doesn't
name
matter.
of it.
I don't like to even mention Steve Albini's name, but that's another story.
Yeah. And so I was going to be a drum tech for them because they were going to be touring all over the world. And then I moved up there and Steve said, no, we don't need a drum tech. So I got a job at a restaurant. And then they broke up. And then Dwayne wanted to release those songs that we'd done as a project. And so Corey at Touch and Go wasn't so much into it. He didn't like the record that much, but he thought that if we got a real drummer that we had potential. And so we got this real drummer, Mac McNeely from Atlanta, Georgia, who's not only an incredible drummer, but the nicest guy in the world. He's a girl who just can't say no.
I'm the
He
girl
moved
that
up
often
there.
just can't say yes because my favorite word is no. Wave. Thank you.
Is it really?
I love to say no. I say yes
I thought
to
you
a
were
lot
going to
of
say
things.
yes. Is no your favorite word?
One of them.
It's a trap.
It's one of them. Yes, it is. Because you know what? The sooner you say no to something you don't want to do, the better you feel. And sometimes you don't have to say yes. You just do it.
No.
Yes.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Carry on. Corey didn't really like this crap until you get in a real drummer, but you were like, yeah, all right, you get a drummer in. Now what? Release the record.
Yeah, and then Mac came up to Chicago, and it was funny. He said that his friends all told him, like, now when you get up there and they're all a bunch of junkies, you just turn right back around and come on home.
Were you a
And we weren't junkies,
You
so
weren't
we
a
stayed.
junkie?
And there's no junkies in Texas, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we're Atlanta. He was from Atlanta.
Georgia. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
there's no junkies
How
there.
come you weren't a junkie? Too bored by those kind of drugs? I don't know.
Yeah, I think needles are the
boring.
only thing I never did.
Well, you know, I love needles, but not when there's heroin in them.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
prefer extracting blood than
Oh, here we
inserting
go.
brown crap in my beautiful red blood. Just saying, anyway. So, first album is coming out now again on Touch and Go by Jesus Lizard.
Yeah, Pure, which was the first record, which I think is a 6 or 8 song EP, and it's with a drum machine.
What year was that?
I think 89.
Did they help you go on tour, Touch and Go, at that point?
We never got tour support. We didn't get money.
Never heard of it in my career.
They, I think that they would help set up interviews and stuff. Actually, at that time, I don't think they even set up it. They didn't really have a publicist.
You know what? Record companies just put out your record, maybe gave you a couple of bucks or some copies to sell, and that's what they did. But that's the shit we couldn't do because we couldn't afford to manufacture our own shit then.
They did on one of those very early tours. They gave us a few boxes of that first record.
That helps.
But because they were defective, one side was like the wrong record or something like that. So we took them on tour and used them as props. And boy, oh boy, I sure realized later that we're lucky that nobody got like really
frisbees.
badly
You used them
hurt.
as
'Cause
frisbees.
We were throwing these things like
You used them
frisbees.
as frisbees.
You know, you hit that.
Oh yeah, and you don't see them if the angle's
yeah.
right at all until it hits you in
You
the
can
face.
cut
We
somebody's throat.
played a place in Richmond, Virginia, and I don't remember the name of it, but it had a really high ceiling, like a 40-foot high ceiling. And we finished the show, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, David, look." And he pointed up, and there was a record stuck in the ceiling
yes.
about 40 feet up.
Music should be dangerous.
Yeah.
In Illinois, I remember seeing a photograph of a piece of paper stuck in a tree because of a tornado.
That's so cool.
Think about a paper
That is
cut.
so cool.
That's so painful.
I mean, that's so insane. I mean, so you have the Texas Touch and Go connection. So I have to ask you, Butthole Surfers. I mean, were they ever asking you to go on tour with them? Or I mean, they were already kind of getting this big cult following.
We didn't do any actual touring with them. We did play a few shows with them. We played a bunch with them in Texas.
Yeah,
I have to say, I love that period of Butthole Surfers and Jesus Lizard. I mean, it was really weird, outrageous, perverse, ugly, yet attractive outsider rock.
Well, yeah, in the early 80s, in 85, there was not a better band on earth than the Butthole Surfers. They were untouchable.
Cherub is one of my favorite songs, and it was used in a Richard Kern film, and I just think that my naked body and that song together, you can't beat it with a stick. Although you could try, but I'm just probably saying, try harder, fucker.
All right. All right. So sorry. We're back in Chicago. It's 89, and now you have a band that has a good indie label that doesn't have necessarily a publicist, but they're encouraging. They're not discouraging, it sounds like. And your post drum machine, you have a real drummer. Is that when you just kind of get down in the mud and just kind of hit the road hard?
Yeah. We just started touring nonstop.
Right.
Nonstop.
And then of course it's becoming it's evolving. It's getting more refined / unrefined. It's getting better, and you're finding your own voice.
I think so. I mean, it's funny, when the first time I met your ex, Jim Thurwell, was at CBGB's, and after the show, he said, "I really like what you're trying to do." And I went,
Trying to do?
and I thought, well, what the? Does that mean he likes the birthday party, or what the fuck? And so,
Who didn't actually like the birthday party? They're pretty good, but
I think it's normal for anyone who's doing some sort of artistic endeavor to really wear whatever they're influenced by on their sleeve. And then hopefully, ideally, you kind of metamorphose and grow away from that.
So were you wearing the birthday party on your sleeve?
I think so, sure. Scratch
Look,
Acid.
I have to say, they, at the time, were one of my favorite bands I ever saw.
Word.
Until Roland S. Howard left and Nick Cave became a fucking heinous balladeer of the Wayne Newton dimension, but Birthday Party were fucking amazing.
They were pretty good.
And if you're going to take that as your influence, which means kind of angular rhythms, ugly, beautiful lyrics.
And when like you said, dangerous.
And
It
dangerous.
was really fucking dangerous.
Both of you, danger is obviously a part of your performance a lot of times, and that the whole crowd interaction. I mean, I know working with her for years.
What's so dangerous about me?
Well,
All right, we don't have enough time for that. We're talking about David Yow.
Sometimes people come to you and ask for danger. So I mean,
Masturbate.
It arrives in many forms and in many ways. And
I wish. Bring it on, motherfucker. Bring it on. He, in my opinion, because he's such a fucking delightful, weird creep, his very nature is dangerous to most people's psyche. Because I don't even know what's under there, but he's a really nice guy, David Yow. But there is a fucking creep lurking of the highest dimension, and I love it.
girls particularly it seemed like they used to be afraid of me. And
Yeah, girls,
I'm
boys
really
are
nice,
off.
and I'm not going to hurt
well,
anybody.
You know what?
But
Maybe you should be.
How would they express this, or how did you sense this?
They would run away.
I would be told by others, she's really afraid of you.
What about men? Were they afraid of you? Did the men come to you?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
And what was the ratio of men to female in the audience, especially as you guys started becoming more and more popular?
With Scratch Acid, it was 89.3 male, and the rest was girls. The Jesus Lizard, I think we started getting more and more. There would be more girls.
You know what I don't like is when the girls come. I call it the gloss pit. They said the mosh pit. I got the gloss pit. But the girls always want to be with the girl. They want to be with me. I'm like, hey, there's 3 other guys in the band. You know, you don't have to go with this faggot.
Yeah, see?
I mean, I'll gladly give you my, that's exactly right.
I'll gladly give you my coronavirus.
I'll gladly give you my leftovers.
All right, so you're touring like crazy. Jesus Lizard, it's growing. It's becoming a successful band. So then what? Are you happier at that point?
How long did that even go on for?
I mean, I'm smack dab 10 years. It was our first show was in July of 1989 in Chicago, and then the last one was somewhere in 1999.
I saw the revival at All Tomorrow's Parties, and I loved it.
Oh yeah, Mindhead. We're
One of the revivals.
Kathy Unsworth.
And I walked up to you with Kathy Unsworth, who's an amazing, true crime writer now, who was a musical journalist for many years and wrote a lot of your liner notes. Good friend of mine. We said, David, you're looking good. And you said, I look like Willie Nelson's scrotum. I go, well, I guess that means you look pretty good.
You're kind.
No, you said it, not me. I'm just repeating it.
Well, clearly Willie Nelson has a very handsome scrotum.
Even at his ripe age of, was he 80? He's really old now, like 84?
Yeah,
So that was
85?
10 years ago, right?
I don't remember when that was, but I think it was interesting because Jesus Lizard were on the bill, and I was doing one of their first spoken word curatorial things.
Who was?
There. I curated one of the first spoken word things at All Tomorrow's Parties because I'm always trying to push that shit on people. You know me, like to talk.
All right, so this is success. You have 10 years. You're enjoying it, and then you're not enjoying it. What made it break up the first round?
Well, we did a bunch of records on Touch and Go.
How many? Name them off.
Pure, Head, Goat, Liar, Lash, Show,
One word
Down.
titles.
Show wasn't on Touch and Go.
What's
Down,
your favorite?
Either Goat or Liar.
So you stopped for a while, and then...
Well, we did 2 records. We signed to Capitol Records.
Okay.
And
How the hell
Well-
is Capitol Records signed Jesus Lizard? What they seeing you, son?
that's what I told him. I told Gary Gersh was running it at the time, and I said, we're not going to sell any more records. And he said, I don't think so. I think you're wrong, David. I think you're going to sell a lot of records. And, of course, we didn't. And we signed
You were right.
a 3-record contract. After
Good
2,
money?
that's the whole reason I bought a house. That's
Why
the
else would you
entire reason.
fucking sign?
There's no other reason
They
to
give
do
you a
it.
good advance, yes.
Yeah.
And good for you. Because that was kind of in the buying, the period when people were
last
buying.
wave of the...
Last wave of buying up all
It was the
bands.
Nirvana,
Yes,
post-Nirvana
They're throwing
feeding
money
frenzy.
around,
Yeah.
yes.
They
weren't
didn't.
gonna
They didn't
change
know.
anything.
They didn't know what to do
You
with
weren't
us.
going to change anything.
Yeah. Then after 2 records, they said, "Okay,
Goodbye.
you can go." And I said,
Goodbye.
"Great, I quit." And so that
And
was
you
that.
quit the band and Capitol.
Yeah,
done?
yeah.
Had you relocated to Los Angeles at that point,
No,
or you were still
no,
in
it was
Chicago?
still Chicago.
And then when did you move here?
2002 or 2001.
So shortly after.
But did you feel, okay, you had Scratch Acid, pretty cool band. You had Jesus Lizard, really cool band. Do you feel like, okay, I did it, and I did all these albums, and that's what I had to do, and that's done. That's enough for now.
Sort of, kind of. I was in a band for a while called Quee, and we did some cool stuff. And they
What was
still
the difference
exist.
between that and Jesus Lizard Quee? How do you spell that?
QUI.
What does it mean?
Well, they say it's a Minnesotan for a homosexual, which it's not.
The others say, when you say
It's short for colloquialism.
Okay, whatever. Call it what you will. What was
Yeah.
the difference in the sound?
They were much more disjointed and like
Angular?
Angular. It was just a guitar and drums, no bass.
How long did that go on for? Just sporadic?
They
shit?
still exist. The
Okay,
two
without you.
Yeah, it was 2 guys from Minneapolis, Matt Kronk and Paul Christensen. They had Quee going for a few years, and then I was going to do a guest appearance a few times with them, and then I just sort of became part of the band.
Time to rock again.
Yeah. And we did that, and it was a blast. And then we stopped doing that, and then some crap happened, and then it was all done. And then a few years ago, the Flipper Boys asked me to sing for them.
To sing in Flipper.
Yeah. Which I kind of was done with music. Well, I think there will be little projects throughout the rest of my life, just little
Why
things.
not? Sure.
But I don't have the time or inclination
energy,
to do. I didn't mean to spit on you.
You can lick it off later.
To do full time,
It's a lot of hard work for what? You know what I mean? I mean, you really, it's got to burn in your blood if you want to go on tour in this day and age. Or, I mean, you can't create music. You don't have to leave your house.
Yeah, it's true.
And I wish more people would not leave their house and just stay there and not let anybody hear it. But
this coronavirus might be the solution
can't
to that.
wait.
That point.
So were you doing photo retouching the whole time? Were you also getting into artwork at the time? While all the projects progress, degress, and stop? I mean...
Well, I learned Photoshop while the Jesus Lizard was going, but I didn't do it professionally until after we broke up, which was funny because when the band broke up, I'd bought a house and my wife and I had a comfortable living and stuff.
Why not?
And
Lord,
the band
got
broke
room
up
for
and
me?
I thought, what the fuck am I going to do? And I'd done some construction. I looked into doing construction and I didn't want to do that. And then I saw that you could make a shit ton of money doing photo retouching. I said, well, I know how to do that. And that's what I did.
And then when did you become more arty at it, like releasing your books on weirdo cats?
Well, I was in art school. I went to school for art, so that means that I'm really good at it.
Oh, yeah.
Which art school did you go to?
Oh, yeah.
Southwest Texas State University.
Like everybody else that went to art school to learn how much in
How to
debt they're
draw.
going to be for the rest of their lives.
Draw Bambi.
So then you moved to Los Angeles. What was this decision behind that, or what was the reasoning behind that?
Largely because the work that I was doing in Chicago was all for advertising companies. And I understand in a capitalist society, advertising is like, it's a necessary evil. It's not that big of a deal.
I respect
Marketing,
good
though,
advertising, though.
Huh?
I like advertising. I would love to do some commercials, voiceovers, write commercials. I think that there was a period when there were actually some really cool commercials. Advertising can be really appropriate. It's propaganda. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think advertising, I don't have that much of a problem with advertising.
Yeah.
I have a problem with marketing. Marketing gets more and more despicable all the
Well,
time. And in all kinds of avenues, like political marketing, people like Karl Rove and stuff like that. I was doing these Frito-Lay store ads with
Would you
Carl
get free
Matt, like,
Fritos?
it was just hideous, horrible shit. And so I thought, okay, well, I can move to California and have it do key art, which is just stuff for movies. I just do movie posters and billboards
Well,
and
that's
stuff.
going to be a lot more satisfying because there's your art background finally paying off that student debt with those movie.
Yeah.
And your wife, did she have a career that you had to convince her to leave Chicago too, or she's like, no, just do this?
Well, she was born in Anaheim, and she always wanted to go back. Okay. And by that time, we'd moved to Northwest Indiana.
Oh boy!
Why?
Oh boy!
Wait,
About
whoa.
50
Gary, is that right? Where'd you live?
South of Gary.
Why?
Crown Point.
That's where your house was that you spent your advance on in
Yeah.
Northwest Indiana.
Yeah, because I was married at the time, and we wanted to maybe have kids, and her folks lived like a mile away. So and
Babysitter's
also I
built
was
in.
on tour all the time, so we figured we could have a kid and live in Northwest Indiana, and
Did
the mom
you have
would
a
be there.
kid?
No,
I'm glad to hear it.
And you got out of Northwest Indiana.
we did, and then we moved out here, and the marriage crumbled, and she went to school.
I'm also glad to hear that.
Yeah, but she's back in Chicago now, and she's doing well. And I love her. I'd do anything for her, but I can't spend more than 30 minutes with her.
Well, that's what happens when, romance dies. Turns to disgust often.
And you stayed here.
I stayed here,
Happily.
and yeah, I had kind of a midlife crisis, which was a blast.
Who doesn't?
Okay, well, can I ask you what you did how did you express your midlife crisis?
I fucked everything I could find.
Okay.
Did you have to pay for a lot of that, or did you get it for free? Just asking. If you could afford it, why not? Hiring a hottie.
Well, if you can get it for free, why
I guess
pay?
you could, but sometimes you want to raise the bar.
Yeah, some people have fetishes too.
Hey, yeah, I love a creep. That doesn't mean I'm going to fuck you.
Right.
We can
And then I got
negotiate
the-
that later, but I'm just saying.
So when did you know your midlife crisis was over?
When I started getting serious with my girlfriend.
Better than getting serious STDs. Did
Yeah.
you find her by fucking aloof? Was she just another fuck on the chain, or what?
She is the sister of a good friend of mine, my buddy Todd
Always
Phillips.
great to fuck your friends' sisters or
Yeah,
mothers.
yeah. That made for some comedy.
Did you ever fuck any of your friends' mothers? David Yow on the Lydian Spin. Contemplating his sexual deviance over the years.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, you better think a little harder. I'm sure you haven't. Why not? Well, maybe you like him young. How much younger is your wife than you? Your girlfriend, your thing, whatever you
She's 5 years younger than I
Oh,
am.
that's not nearly enough. So you went the rounds of sticking your dick in anything that would allow you to, and then you found the one that actually made you sing, again, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, she's swell.
Nice.
After the 10 years of Jesus Litter and breaking up, you guys have, I don't know, was it money or what it was, but every now and then you guys kind of come back and do a couple shows.
The first one, the impetus was always one big thing. Like the first one was ATP,
Yeah,
Ultimate Mars
Ultimate
Party,
Parties.
and they offered us so much money. That it was like, well,
Can't
you'd
refuse.
be stupid not to. And
Teenage
then,
Jesus
Yeah.
also did one there under the Melvins in Mike Patton. He offered so much ridiculous money.
Yeah.
I ain't doing that again.
and so I think we've done 3 reenactment tours, and each one has come about because somebody somewhere says, well, here's so much money you can't say no. And then we just tack some more other shows on with it. The last being right at the end of 2019, we played Nashville and Philadelphia, and then we played New Year's Eve in Brooklyn a couple months ago. And that was a lot of fun.
And Nashville is, it's interesting about bands, and if we've all been in them. Sometimes you don't know why, but certain cities, and you would never suspect why, just like you, and you go back to those cities, and they're just there. And different bands I've been in, they're different cities, but why? And I'm curious, Nashville being one of them for you guys?
No, it was Nashville because
Destroyed
that's
now, by the way.
Wow,
right.
got
Well,
fucked up.
eastern part of it.
Got fucked up.
Our guitar player lives there, and so it's the most central location for me in California, Max in Chicago, Dwayne's in Nashville, and David's in New York.
Backline companies, all that stuff. It's
There's
just
some
like,
Yeah.
people that you like and you just keep going back to. And for me, that would be Weasel Walter, and he's going to come in with a few questions right now.
I had one main question. I think historically you were legendary for doing tricks with your genitals. And I was wondering if you could touch on that for a moment.
no touch and go.
Most of those were taught to me by Jim Rose from the Jim Rose Circus Sideshow.
A legend.
Yeah. And so I can't take credit for most of them. The Ugly Rosa Bloomin', I think every boy has done that. That's when you take your dinger and you mish it back down into its own skin and then pull the skin of your scrotum up over it so it looks just like a little mound. And if you're not really clean, so it's a little bit sticky, it's best. And then you let go and it sort of slowly blooms. And Gibby gave it the name the Ugly Rosa Bloomin'.
It's like an alien in Aliens when that little thing comes out. It's all kind of like
Yes, it
sticky
just-
and
it
the
presents
strings.
itself.
Yeah. Going back to girls being worried about you or being afraid of
why
you.
they didn't want to fuck you for a couple of years because they thought you were a fucking rose blooming dick diddling creep. David, I only say it out of great respect because I am the creepiest person I know, and when I see another creep, I just feel some kind of kinship.
It's nice.
Thank you. Who were some of the bands that you really liked in that period and that you might even still like now? Because we don't have many we like.
Yeah, the Buttholes, the Dicks, Terminal Minds, Sharon Tate's Baby, all local Austin bands. God, there were so many.
But that was the period when there were a lot of good bands. It's kind of difficult now.
Yeah, and it was cool also at the time. Like, I mean, I saw Teenage Jesus at what was it?
What?
At Duke's Royal Coach.
I
You
got no idea about that.
remember that in
No,
Austin?
I don't. I don't even remember going south. That
Maybe it
period.
was Eight-Eyed Spy.
Probably. That's more like it.
You're just gonna wait for things to come and you're just gonna do your career, or do you have any other grand plan designs that you're?
No, I
you'd like
have
to
no.
reveal?
I have no musical designs. What I wish that I was paying the bills with was acting because I've done a handful of movies.
Yeah,
and
tell us how
stuff,
you
and
got
that's-
into that.
that's
That's
what
what you're
I mean,
doing
you're
now.
here. You gotta get an agent, or are you gonna actually see it through?
I have an agent and a manager. Well, that's not true. My agent just lost his job about 2 weeks ago.
And I guess he took you with him down that slide.
He wants to have me wherever he ends up.
Which could be the
Working.
gutter. How did you even get into acting? And tell us about some of your recent projects with that.
I did some of it in high school and college, and then when I was in Chicago, a filmmaker named Jim Sikora asked me to do a couple little things, which I did. And then And that was part of the impetus also for moving to LA. Like, okay, I can do the key art here, and I can do some more acting, because there's a lot of that goes on in Los Angeles.
Seems that way. A lot of pretending going on here. A lot of fakery going on here.
And
tell us some of the projects you've been in.
there was a movie that went to Sundance called "I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore."
That's been pretty popular on the set.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
coming up with popularity.
It didn't have a theatrical run, which is a bummer.
People know about it, and I think
Yeah.
it's on Netflix now, isn't it?
It is on Netflix,
What
and it
part do
won
you-
Sundance. It won Best Picture at Sundance.
You're doing great. So, what was your role in that?
I played Marshall. I'm kind of like a bad guy. I play bad guys more than
And you're
anything
so
else.
nice.
I was having some makeup done, and the guy who was doing it said, we'd been talking for a while. He said, "David, you've confirmed my theory." And I said, "Yeah, I have. What's that?" And he goes, "It's always the nice guys who play the assholes."
Well, let me tell you, my theory about women is they want a nice guy that knows how to act like an asshole. They get an asshole that pretends they're a nice guy.
Boing.
So maybe you're the perfect man after all.
Probably.
I kind of knew that from the beginning. I'm just saying. What was the last thing that you were featured? That's great that it went to Sundance and won the award. Though.
I think
That's
the
very
last one
cool.
also was at Sundance, called Dinner in America, where I have just a small role as a band manager, kind of a prick. I had a mustache and everything.
Ooh, that can't look good on you.
Yeah.
Did you have to paint it on?
No, I growed it all on my own. Actually, I'd grown a beard, and then I shaved off the beard and left the mustache because, it's pretty hard to walk around with a mustache.
Or beard.
Depends what neighborhood you're in, but yeah.
There was this artist in New York, Andy Soma, who at one point did this art project that I thought was very bold, where he had a full head of hair, but he decided to shave it into a comb-over for a year to realize how people treat you so differently according to your hair. And people treated him like a fucking creep, and he wasn't. I once walked down Hollywood Boulevard, put on a long white Lady Godiva wig, walked out, the whole world changed. Like, suddenly, you're a blonde, and people are noticing something else. Hair makes all the difference. So does a
Well,
mustache.
your whole get-up, the way you look. I did another movie called Under the Silver Lake, where I played, the character's name is the homeless king.
The homeless
And I'm
king.
a homeless guy, and I had grown a full beard, and they made me, I was dirty, dirty, dirty. My skin looked like black leather. So, and we were shooting in Griffith Park. I had some time to kill, so I just went walking around amongst people.
See how the people treat you.
And boy, oh boy, I tell you what, man, fathers pulling their daughters closer. And
Well, they should do that when they see you anyway, but I'm just saying.
it was very much a social experiment.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And imagine doing that for a year with a bad comb over when you got full hair. I mean, that was a very brave art project.
I mean, I puked in Miami airport once after not sleeping and going nuts for a weekend. The parents were definitely pulling the kids away from me. Well, I had to puke. I had to puke in the recycling bin.
Imagine having to shat your pants.
I was like, okay, do I go through security and maybe puke then? I was like, you know what? Let's just get it over with now. And I went over to the recycling bin. It all came out. Got through security, sat in my chair, shut my eyes, and it's like, welcome to New York. Just total blackout the whole way.
Like a month ago.
it was a year ago. But whoever sat next to me, definitely that was they probably didn't smell so good.
Vom-voms.
Do you like living in Los Angeles?
I love it. I love this
The
town.
weather's great. The architecture's good.
Well, it's weird. When I first moved here, people complain like there's not much architecture in
They're not
LA,
looking
but-
in the right places.
Well, I know. Tons of Spanish shit that's cool as hell,
So
and lots of
gorgeous
crafts
place.
and stuff.
Hancock Park.
And I
so
live in
gorgeous.
Altadena, which is sort of right by the mountains, and it's very quiet. And people who bitch about California or Los Angeles don't know what they're talking about because they come to Hollywood for a weekend and they think they know LA.
Well, I lived in LA twice. I mean, I lived here in the early 80s for 2 years, and I lived in Venice Beach and Highland Park, and then I lived in Glendale for 4 years in the early 90s. And the thing is, LA is just a very unusual place. There is no center. It's very weird. Friendship is strange here. People are praying to a dead star on the sidewalk. It's a massive, ugly sprawl. And then there's great amounts of nature and beauty in the architect scattered all over. It's what you make it.
You can be at the ocean and 20 minutes later be in downtown and 20 minutes later be a snow-covered mountain.
And 20 minutes
Amazing.
later, you can be in Inglewood. Every city, I don't care where it is, how bumfuck it is or how big, there are cool pockets of things, whether it's the nature, whether it's the architecture, whether it's the people, whether it's the absence of all of the above, and you got to make it for yourself. It's like every place is what you make it. There is no golden grade or other because you can go anywhere and it can still suck because you fucking suck. Consider my body a hotel where many monsters live. I'm comfortable everywhere, but are you comfortable with me? I'm just asking.
Are you, David? Are you comfortable with her?
I'm just saying.
He's very comfortable with me.
Yeah, for
He's got
sure.
no issue with me.
Yeah.
Haven't even met that many times, but every time we do, it's just like, we know.
I think we met when we played it with the Buttholes at Danceteria. I think we met there. And I think the next time was Minehead.
Doesn't matter. I feel like I've known you. Well, there's certain aspects that we share that we don't even need to enunciate or elucidate on, because it could just be me imagining. Maybe I'm just painting part of me onto you.
Maybe.
Or maybe I feel that you can sneak in under my pillow anytime you want, but be careful because I do carry a gun.
So let me ask you, what did your military dad think of just your life and your rock and roll ways? Was he totally...
That's a really cool question, Tim, because when I got into the punk rock, my dad and I were not getting along. Like there was one Christmas Eve, I was at my folks' house. My dad was off somewhere, and I said to my mom, "What time do you want me to be here tomorrow?" And she started crying, and she goes, "David, your father doesn't want to see you tomorrow on Christmas."
Wow,
And,
it's heavy.
Yeah,
That's a tough one, right?
And I hated him, and
How
he
old
hated
were you?
me. Probably 20 or 21.
Okay.
And
What you hated him for probably some different rebellious ways? I mean,
rebellious ways, and he was very conservative and
Okay.
stuff. And then also I sort of got homeless and had to kind of move back home. And I was in that first Toxic Shock band when I played bass, and I'd written these words that my mother found. She was cleaning my room, and she found these words like where I'd said that I wished my father would die so I could get his money and blah blah blah. And so I came home one day, and everything I'd ever given my mother was on my bed. And
That's heavy.
Yeah, and she said, I saw this stuff, and she said, "David, I've seen The Exorcist, but I didn't know anything that evil existed."
Well, you know what? I mean, and did you form a peace, or was that just kind of was that a divorce with your parents at that point? You never looked back, did you?
Well, I tried to explain to my mom that it was sort of tongue in cheek, And my mom and I, our friendship remained always. But then my dad and I, we just couldn't get along. But then he had retired from the Air Force, and he was flying airlines. Right. One night he was fixing to take off, and his co-pilot said, "Frank, you're too drunk to fly." And so they said, "Okay, either you go to rehabilitation or you're fired."
What year was that?
19.
It kind of matters because the protocols on those things changed throughout the years.
Nobody wants a drunken pilot.
No, I know.
86.
What, do you know what airline he was working for?
I don't. It was little. It was really little. He called it TWA, but it was Teeny Weeny Airlines.
So what did he choose? Rehab or did he?
He went and quit drinking. And he became the guy that my mom married, the open-minded, free-thinking, wonderful artist. He was an artist. He couldn't decide when he was in school. He either wanted to be an artist or a fighter pilot, and he chose fighter pilot and went to Vietnam and killed 1,000,000 people. Did
that inspire his art? Did murder inspire your dad's art, or did it inspire your music?
Everything. He became a good guy again. And so for the last 13 years of his life, we were friends. And so he would come to see the Jesus Lizard. And we got sued by this girl in Texas when I threw a beer in the audience. She claimed it hit her and caused permanent damage. And we had to go to court. My mom and dad both took the stand. And it was so great. It was so great.
Circle, you're being asked not to go to Christmas because you're punk rock ways, and here they are on the stand defending your ways. Yeah,
my dad's he was very articulate, and he was very smart and very clever. And so their ambulance chasing shit ass lawyer said to my dad, "So retired Lieutenant Colonel Frank Lambeth Yow, are you proud of your son?" And when my dad was really serious, he'd grit his teeth and do this thing, and he gritted his teeth and he goes, "Yes, I am."
Oh, this is like a movie.
Man, it was so fucking great. It was so great. And I was just like looking at them going, "You're fucking with the wrong people."
Yeah,
like
you're done at that point. Yeah. And was it were there any tears in the jury box?
Well, that was great. There were several blue hairs in there. And so when I was on the stand, the lawyer said to me, "So what are you good at?" Because I think he'd read interviews where I'm self-deprecating, so he thought maybe I would just be self-deprecating. But I said, "Well, my wife thinks I'm a good cook. I've written a few lines that I'm pretty proud of, and I don't know anyone who can beat me at Scrabble more than I can beat them. And these little old ladies in the jury just go
isn't
like,
he adorable? Look at him go.
All right, so you,
Did it matter to you that your dad said that, whether he was serious or not? Did you want your dad's approval?
oh yeah.
Jesus, why?
he loved his dad.
I know, but
I
still.
was so proud of him. He was my hero.
Because he killed a lot of people?
No.
Because he was an artist and a fighter jet pilot?
Uh-huh.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just asking. I'm glad he turned out to be a good man,
Well,
and
you-
you were proud of him.
Well, that story, besides things like TV movies, that doesn't usually happen. And so the fact that you guys could come full
Together.
circle, there he is, at least in my little interpretation based on what you told me, cracking the whip of order and discipline. And then he finds himself on against the fucking wall with his drinking. And that can go in many different directions.
There is a
Yeah,
point when
and-
most parents do become the babies that their children have to take care of, though. That's what always I think is just ridiculous anyway.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Well, he was an alcoholic. He had to go to rehab. At least he had the good sense to go into rehab.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to babysit and change his fucking diapers.
So were there a couple years after his rehab, or is it kind of that turbulent, no pun intended with the pilot thing, but that kind of turbulent transition? Or did he, I know a little bit of these apologies. Did he contact you in the middle of that? Or how did you come back? Or your mom said, come in, your dad wants to talk
part
to
of
you?
their program is making amendments
Yes,
to
totally.
like people. Honestly, I mean, he did apologize to me, but I don't know that he ever really went through as well as he should have with me. I know that he was a really good sponsor and had a shit ton of like sponsees.
Look, a lot of parents are better with other people than they are with their own children. And that's
Sure.
another reason to not
I
procreate.
think that's pretty common.
That is a reason absolutely to not procreate. First of all, I mean, parents, nobody teaches you how to be one. So therefore, don't do it and try to learn from the mistakes your parents made. That's one thing. Other thing is parents become their own, they become babies at a point. If they live too long, they become the babies you got to take care of. You didn't have a baby, now you got parents that are babies. That's another problem. Nobody writes the script for this. There's no perfection. There's no ideal situation. Parents are often disappointing. They're abusive. They're neglecting. They're alcoholic. They're drunk. They're drug addicts. They die. Why the fuck do we have them? Oh yeah, that's the only way we got here. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and David Yow.